Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025, and today we're going to talk about why I'm not good at farming and why sometimes I'm okay at it. But also, we'll take a question about farmers market etiquette. So let's do it. All right, well, I didn't expect to be doing this for a second time this week, but before we really dive in today, I wanted to acknowledge the passing of a farmer some of you may know. Last week, Casey Piscura of Wild Mountain Seeds in Colorado passed away. I had the privilege of interviewing Casey in February of 2020 for the No-Till Market Garden podcast, and he was doing all sorts of interesting things with breeding different crops and high altitudes up there in the Rocky Mountains, sending our love to his friends and family and community. I will post that link in the show notes if you'd like to go back and have a listen. Rest in peace, friend. It's a tough loss. All right, well, welcome everyone to Wednesday. The snow came and went here, and now it's turning to slush, and then a warm day today. Maybe a little wintry mix tonight. It's a very jazzy little thing the weather's got going on this week. Anyway, today I want to focus on what I think I'm good at when it comes to farming and what I'm the opposite of good at when it comes to farming. But for a very specific reason. I think exploring what you are and are not good at helps to focus your attention and either identify where you need improvements or perhaps where you need others to fill in for you. In short, identifying what we are good at and what we are not as good at is a task that we should all do, especially in a business as dynamic as farming. So here's me doing that and then editorializing about each item because I have a daily show where I can do that. For better or worse. First, some farming things that I am somewhere between okay to good at. To start is the labor. I like the physical labor, and there's no shortage of labor in farming. I think most people can learn to enjoy the labor if given enough time, but there are very few jobs in farming that I don't enjoy, just on the physical side. I mean, sure, sometimes the weather is not the best, but like I've said before, probably in farming, you may have to work a few nasty days, but you will never have to miss another nice day again when you're a farmer. Of course, you learn pretty fast in owning a business that you cannot do all the labor. You have to manage and delegate some of it. And I think that part I'm also okay at, the whole managing and delegating thing. There are also plenty of farm jobs that don't require as much physical labor for those who don't love to do it. Washing, packing, sales, marketing, all those things. Farming is a lot of labor, but that doesn't mean labor is the only part of farming. When I have employees, I do get in a rhythm. I think I can do a fair job of making reasonable decisions and making a reasonable project list for the day and balancing their labor so as not to wreck them or wreck myself. Managing employee time and your own time is a significant portion of running a successful farm. I'm reasonably good at the farmers market, which I will mostly save to talk about in the next segment. I spent years working in retail and I enjoy answering questions for customers, managing busy booths. It's a natural fit for me. As someone who's fought anxiety most of their lives, it's nice to recognize that into a customer and be like, oh, I know how to help this person. I've joked before and many times that when Hannah and I are done farming and the kids are out of the house and my weekends are free, I'm just going to find some young farmers who are hiring and help them with their market booths because it's something I'm good at. But like I've talked about before, we're not doing the farmer's market now because I would rather spend that time with the kids. And I should say, a lot of farmers do not love that part. A lot of farmers are introverted and love the field work, but hate the sales side, or at least they don't feel comfortable there, which is perfectly fine and normal. However, although farming is growing food, running a farm business is about selling it. So this is one of the challenges to running a farm business. You have to find a way to move the produce that you grow, and that involves dealing with customers. So if you identify that as a skill that you don't quite have, it is a task that still needs to get done well. So how will you make that happen? It's an important question to ask and answer. Another thing is that I'm reasonably decent at managing soil health, but that one took time. I have developed an nose for the problems and systems for managing soil health and plant productivity in many different scenarios, but it wasn't that way at first. It took a lot of development. I'm not a big believer in the idea of the green thumb. People who have a quote-unquote green thumb are usually people who are good at following advice and or have reasonably good soil to work with. On my last farm, I felt like I was a genius by the time we left, but that soil was just amazing pre-Farmer Jesse. It just was. And then the new farm humbled me quite a bit. Humbled by Clay is probably a good working title for my memoir. But I've slowly figured it out. So in that way, some of the things that I'm good at are by virtue of having a lot of different farm experiences and a lot of curiosity. Though I'm not always the most efficient at choosing jobs, I'm relatively efficient at planting and working. You really have to be in this business because farms cover a large surface area. You cannot be walking or driving back and forth to get one tool at a time in this business because movement is labor and labor is expensive, even or especially your own labor. Last thing I'll say here, because maybe I'm running out of them while my list of things I'm not good at keeps growing. Anyway, to that point, about wasting time going back and forth, I'm good at setting some boundaries. By that, I mean, I'm good at saying I'm not going to work past 4 p.m. or whatever and sticking to that. In fact, I find you get everything done way faster and more efficiently when you restrict how much time you're willing to dedicate to the day. If not, you will farm until dark every day. Certainly in the first 2 years, you may have to do that, but the goal should always be to have farming be something that is possible to do in a normal workday. If you want to then spend the last 4 hours of your day out playing in the garden, that's fine, but it should not be farm work. It should be time left to do the fun things that you want to do, not the things that the farm needs you to do. For me, that's soccer, but sure, sometimes it's hunting wild mushrooms or planting trees or photography, but it's whatever I want to do and not just what the farm wants me to do. Anyway, that's absolutely everything I'm good at in farming, save for maybe that I can do a pretty mean daisy chain with my row cover. But this particular show is an experiment. So I'll be curious to hear, especially after the flaws section, if the idea of identifying what we're good at and what we're not as good at is at all helpful to you, and how that changes your approach to farming or gardening or life or whatever it is you're up to. I mean, life seems like a given, but I'll leave it up to you. So we'll take a quick break, then dive deeper into managing the farmers market booth. BRB. Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by GrowSmart. Curious if your soil will be ready for planting this spring? GrowSmart can help you find out with their at-home soil tests. They'll ship it right to your door. Just send it back with your prepaid shipping and you'll have your lab results in just 2 business days. Their reports are simple with tailored seasonal recommendations for fertilizers and amendments. Order now at growsmart.com and use the code DAILY for 10% off. That's DAILY. Begin your soil prep now for a great spring with GrowSmart. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this content, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Casista DVM, who writes, quote, when you're looking for a contentious and debatable topic, which I know is really not your style and good on you, you might consider addressing farm stand and farmers market etiquette. What produce handling pet peeves have you seen in farmers markets that would impact their ability to sell to the general public? And how do farm stand marketers set their customers up for success? This is such a contentious topic among some growers, and it touches on the frequent inability of experts to connect with their clients in the general public. An opportunity to impress and alienate a customer could be turned into a learning opportunity for the buyer, how to handle the produce, and the seller, what does the market really want from the producers. As always, setting a helpful example can reduce barriers within the profession, end quote. Okay, so great question and commentary, and have no fear, this will not be the most contentious topic of the week now. So, however, I could see this getting contentious in situations where an established farmer who has been selling for years and has their routine is missing out on sales or alienating customers because of something they regularly do and doesn't want to hear about it or change, even though the markets change. Like customers and what their preferences are change all the time, and you kind of do have to keep an eye on that. To be clear, it's fine not to change. No one has to change, and some people find a niche and stick with it even if it doesn't necessarily lend itself to growth, or even if sales start to decline. I'm not going to judge, but I can share some tried and true farmers market tricks that anyone can use to boost sales with little to no effort. So, not sure if it totally answers your question, Casista, but here's a quick list. First, always stand at the farmer's market or hire someone who can stand if you are not able to. Sitting has a leave me alone vibe to it. It's not the most inviting posture. And remember, at a farmer's market, you are asking people to cease their stride and come buy something from you. Being inviting is the key. To that point, I say good morning to every single person that walks by. especially if there are no customers in the booth. I will walk to the front of my booth and greet every passerby until a customer comes in. It's almost like a dam or something. Once like that little bit of water trickles through, the dam breaks and the customers flood in. But sometimes you have to get that first trickle going first. Display is also a big part of sales. In market farming, we have a saying. It's called pile it high and kiss it goodbye, meaning that the more bountiful your display looks, the faster things will sell. In fact, going into the canopy, higher into the canopy versus spreading out on the tables can be more attractive while also protecting the produce from sunshine, which is a produce and sales killer. Indeed, I cannot tell you how often I see a display of produce that looks absolutely ragged from wind and heat and sunshine, with wilted greens and bags of lettuce baking in the sun like tiny little greenhouses. There is no customer who heads out to buy local produce and spend local produce prices that is like, I kind of hope it's half dead when I buy it. So bringing things in coolers with ice, regularly refreshing them, becomes a near constant chore on a hot day, but an essential one. We also mist regularly with clean, fresh water as somebody would in a grocery store. Emphasis on clean water. Don't use the same bottle you brought last week. Always bring fresh, cold water. When I do a farmer's market, I am busy from start to finish and only stop moving in the slow season, and even then, just barely stop moving. Lastly, come fresh. You can get away with it when you're young, but as you get older, harvesting until dark and then trying to be cheery on a Saturday morning is not a viable long-term recipe for success. For a Saturday market, for example, I recommend trying to get to that point that you harvest on Thursday and Friday morning, and then either be done or have someone else finish the work on Friday afternoon. That way, you're ready to go on Saturday. Anyway, those are some things that come to mind that I see farmers doing that ultimately sort of hurt their business. But there are also many different contexts and ways to do things. There are also different goals for each farm. So for some growers, if you're happy with your sales and what you're doing, then don't listen to me. But if you can glean something from what I just said, great. I certainly never stop learning myself. And in fact, feel free to put your pet peeves and strategies in the comments. Maybe I'll learn something there. Otherwise, when we come back, what I am not super great at as a farmer. Some of it. It's probably too big to really detail here. Be right back.
Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. I don't know about you, but I got into farming to be in the field growing food for my community, not creating elaborate pack lists, not writing newsletters or responding to emails, not designing and maintaining web stores, and etc. And I especially don't enjoy doing those things after an already full and fulfilling day of growing food. Actually, if I spent less time on my phone and behind the computer, that would be great. If only there were a solution for that. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand is the only all-in-one virtual assistant built by and for farmers. With one single platform, Farmhand enables you to offload your administrative tasks, send and manage communications, and sell more to your customers. Farmhand saves growers an average of 6 hours of administrative load each week. That's 6 hours so you can get back into the field, spend more time with friends or family, or have a life outside of the farm, which is actually a thing. Think about it. What would you do with an extra 6 hours a week? Sign up for a free trial with the link in the show notes, because now is the best time to dial in those systems for the next growing season. Follow the Farmhand link in the show notes to learn more. All right, back to the show.
All right, so as promised, perhaps somewhat regrettably, after discussing what I think I'm okay at in the first segment, let's talk about what I'm kind of terrible at when it comes to farming in this last segment. First, I'm decent at making a business plan, but I'm not great at revisiting it. Honestly, I can't even find the last one I made, which is not great, and I will probably make another one this fall. I'm good at making a family and farm budget and managing that, but that's not the same as a business plan. Your business and farm needs a plan. It needs a target or a set of targets, both financial and ecological. And it's okay for those targets to change and shift, but a business plan helps you to stay focused. All too often, I fall into the trap as a business owner of being reactionary instead of pre-actionary, meaning I often make business decisions based on what is working in the moment versus a set target for the business. Sometimes that can work, but ultimately you can find yourself going in circles. And if the 2002 movie The Ring taught us anything, it's that circles can be dangerous. I think that when it comes to being a successful business, at least one person on the team needs to know not only what the prize is, but be able to keep their eye on it. This is not my strong suit, because another part of this, another thing that I'm not great at, is that I'm easily distracted. I have an idea and I want to try it right away, right then and there. I don't always take the time to set up good experiments, and I lack the discipline to keep track of my experiments in a more useful way. Moreover, I experiment way too much. I experiment on beds that I actually need to succeed. So not only am I getting no relevant data, but sometimes I'm losing crops to poorly designed experiments. It's a lose-lose. I've gotten better about that in recent years, but I can't promise I won't fail some of my experiments this year. I think some folks are better at planning these things into their garden plans, which brings us to another thing I'm not great at: garden planning and then sticking to the plan. Garden planning is a critical part of the success, and the plan I can make, and I actually do a pretty good job at it. But like the business plan, in the middle of the season, I often find myself just falling back on instinct. The long season crops get planned and executed fine, but the short season stuff often just gets started as needed, again, reactionarily, instead of following the set plan. It can bite you when you forget about a crop or run out of bed space for a crop you plan to have, causing log jams in the greenhouse or holes in the farmer's market booth. I mean, on the table, not literal holes in the booth. So you or someone you work with has to have that discipline, or they have to develop it, or you have to develop it. Naturally, all of this can be improved upon, right? Like, I used to be bad at managing our numbers, but I found a system that worked for me, and it's made a huge difference to just have a routine built around inputting the numbers. We also set financial goals for ourselves instead of just trying to make whatever we make. This helps us to cull the things that don't fit our plan. Last, though the business plan often gets forgotten about, the holistic goals are still something that we talk a lot about and think a lot about. I care a lot about being a good dad and good husband, still working on the being a good business owner thing, but those are things that I always have my sights set on. Anyway, sometimes I think it's important to at least helpful to identify what you're good at and what you're not great at. Then look for people who can either fill those gaps and or you can develop those skills for yourself as best you can, but to be sure you cannot be good at everything. In that episode I did talking about what is a farm actually, which I'll link in the show notes, I discussed how complicated farms are. The person who is good with numbers is not always the person who is good with customers. And the person who is good with customers is not always the person who is fastest in the field, and so on. Also, I'm terrible with machinery. I'm just putting that one in there. I have absolutely no mechanical savvy or instincts. That said, I do appreciate how easy our walk-behind tractor is to fix, because every once in a while when I have to replace a part or fix something like I do now, I can actually do it, and I get to feel like a genius. So shouts to that. What are your strengths or weaknesses when it comes to running a farm business? Is it even helpful for you to know that or think about it? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up there. But before we go, I want to give one last shout out to the good folks over at Rimmel Greenhouses for making this possible. So whether you're growing tomatoes for market or flowers in the spring or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble. I put one together myself, and we just talked about it. I'm not great at anything like that. Anyway, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Big thanks to all of our show sponsors. Big thanks to Willie Breeding for the theme music and the team at No-Till Growers. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music you are hearing. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook by me or the Seed Farmer by Dan Brisebois over at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of February, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to just one new one today, Nancy Baker. Nancy Baker's a fun name to say. It's nice and that's got a good bounce to it. All right, Nancy. So I don't have to tell you this, but Nancy is an Oregonian trombone player who started a market garden, and Nancy has a really busy day at market one day and comes home and is exhausted, but decides to go out to the garden to just kind of play the trombone, hang out. hang out with the vegetables, play some music on the garden, kind of wind down, right? And Nancy starts playing the trombone and notices that all of the bugs are really reacting to it in an interesting way, and recognizes that when Nancy plays a specific note, they do specific things. So thus starts a montage of Nancy figuring out how to accurately manipulate these bugs with a trombone. And it ultimately becomes, it's kind of the making of a superhero story. Yeah, look out, Marvel and Ant-Man. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching and/or listening. We will see you... Ant-Man, Marvel? We will see you tomorrow. Yeah.